Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Tuesday, November 28th meeting of the New London Planning Board. We will go ahead and get started. We have, dare I say, a delightfully light agenda tonight. We're going to go ahead and skip the minutes because the November 14th minutes just went up recently, so we'll take those up at our next meeting. Pardon? Oh. So this is the point in the meeting where I ask if there is public comment from somebody who would like to talk about something that is not on our agenda. Is there anybody here for something that's not on our agenda? Okay, well, small but mighty group. Appreciate you showing up. All right, so we will jump right in then and talk about the Eversource Energy planned work for the M127 transmission line. If you just want to come up and just hit the button on the mic so that the light turns green and we can hear you. And just introduce yourself, please. Yes, Thank you. Also, quick reminder, I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting again. Thanks, Jeremy, for the reminder. We are being recorded, so this is something new for us still, but just so everyone's aware that we're doing video. Thank you.
Great. Okay, this does work. I'm not used to hearing myself on a microphone. My name is Lindsay White. I work for GZA Geoenvironmental. I'll even introduce yourself. Just.
Eversource Energy.
Great. And when you guys talk, just, I know it's hard because with one mic, but just so we can hear it on the recording. Do we have an, oh, okay. Do you want me to do a recording?
Yeah, do you mind?
Yep. So just try to talk into the mic when we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I have to
Thanks.
drag Doug back up, I'll make him come up here with me.
Thank you.
So thank you again for having us this evening. We are here as Eversource is looking to replace existing utility poles on the M127 transmission line. And we have submitted 3 permit applications to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, so we'll be going to them next week. But the permits include a special exception for impacts to the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District, a special exception for impacts in the Steep Slope Overlay District, and a variance for impacts in the Steep Slope Overlay District. So we wanted to come here tonight to loop in the planning board and hear any concerns or questions that the planning board might have before we get to the zoning board. So again, happy to be here and happy to answer any questions that the board will have. And I'll just give a little bit of background on the project and the line itself. The M127 transmission line is about 26 miles in length, and it begins at the North Road substation in Sunapee and continues easterly through Springfield, New London, Wilmette, Andover, and ends in Franklin at the Webster substation. So it crosses through quite a few towns. The overall project will be replacing 25 existing wooden utility poles. Only 5 of those, however, are located in the town of New London. All 5 are located and accessed off of Lakeshore Drive through an off right-of-way access that Eversource has granted permission to utilize. So we travel up off Lakeshore Drive and into the right-of-way from there. As I mentioned, the existing poles are wooden and they'll be replaced with a steel equivalent pole. So what that means is the existing poles are what we call H-frame. So it's 2 poles with a cross arm that crosses between the 2 poles. And when they're replaced, it'll be replaced with steel, which are, of course, a little bit bigger, a little bit taller to meet National Electric Safety Code standards. And it's just the practice now in the modern age to replace with longer lifespan, more endurance. And they will also be that same H-frame structure. So they'll look similar to what's there now, a little bit bigger in size. So we will need access to each of the poles, of course, to replace them, and also to construct a work pad around each of the poles. And that's to provide a safe, level work area for construction equipment and workers, materials and whatnot. And so I can go into more detail about each of the permit applications that we've submitted, but just before I dive into that and hand out plans, is there any questions so far? I'm throwing a lot at you, so.
Yeah, go ahead. If you guys both have a question.
Do you have a map to conceal exactly where the line goes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll hand that out in a moment. Yep.
Are the construction pads intending to be permanent?
Yep, so I'll dive into that also. So it's different for both.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll dive into that as well. It depends on if it's in wetlands or uplands. So I'll hand out. We have 2 map sets because of the 3 applications. Oh, and we have a map up too. Oh, TV over there. I'll hand out these ones to an employee. So the ones Doug is handing out is for the special exception in the steep slope overlay district, and I'm going to hand out the ones that cover the variance, so the impacts to uplands greater than 25% slopes.
Thank you. Meet in the middle. Great, thanks. I need to ask them a way to vote for Paul too. I forgot to do that. Yeah, true. Good point.
So the both plan sets that I handed out, it's going to have the same look to them. They just call out different impact areas. So we'll start with the uplands impacts areas. So this is where we have applications for impacts in the steep slope overlay district, and the special exception covers impacts for slope impacts between 15 and 25%. And the variance is covering impacts for slope impacts on slopes greater than 25%. So in upland areas, Eversource is typically constructing stone or gravel access roads in the right-of-way that are intended to remain after construction's complete. During construction, we plan for work pads that are about up to 100-foot by 100-foot area, and that's during construction. And in uplands, again, that's with gravel graded to be level. After construction is completed, the 100-foot by 100-foot work pad is reduced down to about a 30-foot by 60-foot area, and that's to leave in place permanently a bucket truck work pad for maintenance or emergencies. So that area does get graded, or the areas outside the 30-foot by 60-foot area is intended to be regraded to existing conditions after work is complete. So all that would remain is the 30 by 60 area and the access road that gets to the poles. That being said, for where the work is right now in New London, the access road that's there is existing already. So really the grading impacts are for the work pads that we're working on. So that kind of covers the upland work that we're doing.
Are there questions from the board on that?
Sure. Yep, on page 1, it shows the entrance off of Lakeshore Drive. That's that yellow spotted line. Sorry, so that's the cover sheet. Flip open to page 1. That shows where the two map pages are that you're looking at.
I hate to sound like the village idiot, but I have 2 different maps.
Yep.
Do I have 2 different maps?
Yes. Yeah, they show 2 different impact areas. So one's for the variance, one's for the special exception. But they'll show the same general. Yeah. Yes. I know. It's the 3 applications that makes it a little messy when we have 3 different map sets. And so yeah, that page 1 shows the access coming off Lakeshore Drive. But page 2 is where you see it comes into the right-of-way. And you'll see the, I'll call them the square boxes. That's our work pads around each of the poles that are being replaced. The black dots are the existing poles that are there right now. And the red dots with red labels are the location of the new pole poles.
When would you like questions?
Anytime.
Just use the mic.
In replacing the poles, what kind of tree trimming or vegetation, disposal are you anticipating? Could you address that in the rest of your talk, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So in right-of-way, currently, it's an existing and maintained right-of-way, so there's no standing trees in the right-of-way. It's shrub, emergent-type vegetation. So for that, there wouldn't be any trimming associated with that for this type of project. There is vegetation maintenance that's done in the right-of-ways as a separate project, but the only other tree trimming that might be needed for branches would be for the off right-of-way access that goes up into the right-of-way, but that is an existing access road that's been utilized before, so if anything, it'd just be maintenance to make sure that the tree branches are trimmed along the side of that access. Mm-hmm.
Yes, is this a high voltage line, or what's the approximate voltage on it?
Yeah, so this is existing a 115 kV transmission line, and it's not changing the voltage of the line by replacing the structures, so it will still remain as a 115 kV.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Okay.
Yeah, and
go
I
ahead.
can address, so there are wetlands also shown on these plans. Those are shown as the green polygons. And where the access is intersecting the wetlands, you see a yellow hatching. And that is indicating where we would have temporary wetland matting. And so that matting is placed down for vehicles to cross over so that the impact to the wetlands isn't permanent. The matting would be removed after construction's complete and then restored with mulch and seeding as necessary. So that's kind of the work that we do in the wetlands, and that's what the special exception is for the permit that we've submitted. And that's really kind of the bulk of the work as a summary. So happy to answer remaining questions for the wetlands portion or uplands, either one.
It's not a question, but we did have the owner of this property here stop by the town office yesterday, and she's unable to be here tonight or next week, but she just wanted to express concern. I showed her the maps and explained that her property was not part of this particular pole replacement, that she was just notified as an abutter, but she was concerned that when work was done here previously, that the monumentation for her corner pin was lost. And so she just expressed the comment that she hoped the same wouldn't happen on this end where the corner pin is likely in the middle of the right-of-way. So I told her I would pass that along.
Absolutely, thank you, and I think Doug's taking note of that.
Are there questions from the board on this? Yeah, Marion.
Oh, Stag-Nabbit, can you give me a little bit of background on why these are being replaced? A little bit of rationale and, the intervals and, kind of educate me.
Yeah, it's,
Telephone pole 101 or electric point 101.
yeah, but I might also call Jeremy Fennell up as well. He arrived a few minutes late, but he's also licensing and permitting with Eversource. And I'll call him to fill in, but the gist of it is the age of the wooden poles. I'm blanking on the exact age. I don't know if either of you recall the exact date that these were installed. It's 1950s. In the 1950s. So they've lasted quite a while, but they have been subject over the years, obviously, to woodpecker damage, wood rot, pole splitting. And inspections are done annually on the lines to identify which poles are in most need of replacement for that year. And so they're kind of grouped together for that project year to be replaced. So that's how this line is coming along.
Yeah, Bill.
So is this similar to the project that you did along Newport Road 2 years ago?
I don't know if I was on that one. You have to come up here,
Yeah,
Jeremy.
sorry. If you can just come up to the mic, sorry, just so we can record it. That is the one by the shopping center.
Yeah, sure. So Jeremy, sorry. Hello. Jeremy Fennell, licensing and permitting. So that's the, was that a 316 line? The distribution line? Yeah, so. anyway,
The work sounds very similar with the pad and the entrance and so on. It's just the landing.
a little bit smaller because
But it was pretty level land along there.
right.
But, so when that was done, I butted that, after they got through, they put it back in reasonably decent shape, and we don't even remember when it was done.
Okay, thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Are there other comments from the board? Questions? From the public, any comments or questions? Okay. Oh, Rich, yeah.
Rich Epstein from Barrett Road. So years ago, Eversource was on our road, Barrett Road, and they were going to all replace all the poles. They were going to replace all the poles, and I don't know whatever happened to that. But my specific need, I think, is we have this rusting transformer that we've been complaining about for years, and Eversource claims you have no money. Somehow you have money for this enormous project, but you can't change a rusting transformer. They said they'd only do anything about it if it started causing environmental damage. Why can't you do that? Replace a rusting transformer.
Yeah, Doug Pimentel, Eversource Energy. So essentially, the reason they may not have been able to replace it at that time, there's numerous different things. If it's a safety concern at that point in time, they'd be able to replace it. That would be like a roadside distribution issue, and it's essentially two separate entities inside of Eversource of what we are. So we're on the transmission side of the house, and that comes from like a different budget, and on the distribution side of the house, that comes from a separate budget as well. So it's definitely a concern that we can take up with the distribution side of the house, and possibly get that taken care of as part of this, and see what we can do about that. Jeremy, anything?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up.
So, thanks, Rich. Any other questions from the public? Any final questions or comments from the board? Okay, no action necessary on our part. This is just a notification, but we appreciate you coming and keeping us informed.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you, and good luck with the work.
Thank you.
And here's a plug for anybody who wants to attend the zoning board next week, 6:30 Tuesday night in here.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Do you guys, would it be helpful to reuse these next week for the ZBA if you, sure.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We're done.
Thanks again for coming. So Adam's going to talk just a bit about zoning, but briefly.
So I don't have a lot to say about zoning amendments for tonight. We've just sort of kept them on as standing agenda items. The outstanding, of the four of them that we have on there, the outstanding component that we still have some work to do is the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, which Peter and the Housing Commission and I met last night and had a good conversation going through a bunch of material that we will get further into at our special meeting on Friday morning at 7:30. When we will get into the meat and potatoes of the accessory dwelling unit work. Otherwise, the plan forward from here is that hopefully sometime next week, I know you guys have seen the redlined versions of the other amendments, but depending on whether or not we need a second work session next week, at some point before our meeting on the 12th, we'll get the red lines of all of the proposed zoning amendments up on the website. And then on the 12th, the expectation from the planning board would be that you vote to move them forward to public hearing in January, or not, but typically that's what happens. And then our meeting in January, I have to think about that, it's the 8th maybe? 9th. January 9th would be the first public hearing for zoning amendments, with the potential second public hearing on January 23rd, which I want to mention that specifically because that is now primary day in New Hampshire. So one, I need to know how many of you might have other duties that day that you wouldn't be able to be at a meeting that night. Okay, so Bill, does David Royal also do counting, or is he?
He depends when it depends when he's assigned as a ballot clerk.
Okay.
And then, Paul, you have the same issue, yeah.
Okay.
So the two of them have the same.
I either come in the morning or not at all.
David frequently likes to be at the end.
Okay.
You might be able to.
Okay,
sway
I'll
him
follow
on
up with
that.
him and see if he could
Yeah.
do earlier. So
But it's going to probably be a long night because of the write-in
write-ins.
ballots, so.
So I guess all three of the selectmen have to be there on primary day, right?
Again, we rotate 4-hour shifts, but then we have to be there at the end to
the end.
sign.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you to go ahead and designate somebody else in your place, but they'll all be tied up at that time. So the anticipation is that we will meet that night at the school, because obviously they'll be counting here. We haven't gotten confirmation from the school yet. We sent an email last week, but obviously it was a holiday, so we just haven't heard back yet. So stay tuned on that. If need be, we would just have to hold our second public hearing another date, but we would like to try to stick to that if possible. So that's where we're at. Any questions?
So that date is?
That date is January 23rd. Peter, anything from last night that you wanted to update on?
Can I have a question? Can I ask a question? We're meeting on Friday at 7:30. Do we have materials that we need to re-review before that meeting?
Not yet.
Okay. So it's not, I didn't miss anything yet.
Not yet.
Good,
Nope.
thanks.
Peter, did you have anything you wanted to add about last night, or?
Nothing of content,
Okay.
more mechanical stuff, the documents, all that for the meeting, the work session.
Okay.
I can talk about that.
Yep, perfect.
Thanks, Peter.
I think we're good.
So, yeah, sorry I couldn't make that meeting, Peter. Okay, any final questions or comment? Thanks, Adam, for that update, by the way, on that, from the planning board. Anything else from the public? Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
This is your reward for the 4-hour meeting last time in a Saturday or a Friday morning meeting at
Exactly.
7:30.
I was going to say, we are meeting again this week, so there is, there is some payback. But thanks all for the brief meeting. Thanks for showing up. Yep. Yeah. See you all Friday morning.